I'm Stephen Foskett, organizer of Tech Field Day and publisher of Gestalt IT. Today, we did a special event with our friends at Scality and HPE, where we saw the launch of a new product.
My very simplistic understanding, it seems to be a very well-packaged object storage solution that allows devs to start at that small scale, but then allows ops to then fully manage it as that grows out with the business.
Yeah, and it sounds like it's quick to deploy. It can sync back to the ring, or you can sync for objects from the ring to the ARTESCA.
The way I view ARTESCA, it is a purpose-built, very light, very fast, very scalable from very small to very large, and containerized via Kubernetes so that it's multi-cloud as well.
I really like the fact they had in there all the APIs for the console are all accessible over the REST API. So there's nothing you can't do in the UI you can't do through the API.
So if you want to get started on a smaller version up to 50 terabytes, it's free, but it's not an open source piece of software. The software itself is closed source. And then if you want to go above that 50 terabytes, you can engage with HPE, I guess, for the next 6 months to do it on their hardware, or beyond that, you can deploy it on your hardware vendor of choice.
What is it about ARTESCA that Scality is doing right in order to make this appeal to the enterprise?
I think maybe the relationship with HPE will open the door for some enterprises who've maybe been a little bit nervous of going down this route. You know, they'll see that backup and support from HPE as something that validates it.
If ARTESCA is going to succeed, it has to appeal to developers and not just sort of top-down enterprise project managers. What do you see in this product from a developer's perspective?
Well, I mean, it's available 50 terabytes for free, so that's kind of useful. It's downloadable. It's all Kubernetes based. It's API intensive from a UI perspective. So all those things are pretty positive from a developer side.
Yeah, the fact they're using they've open sourced their S3 APIs also is really powerful. That you can dive in and if there's something missing, fix it, or you now can understand what's going on behind the covers. Maybe the ARTESCA product itself isn't open source, but the pieces it's built upon are. And the fact as a developer, I can easily just get the image, run it locally, code against the actual implementation I'm going to run in production is super powerful for not running into strange edge cases once you go to prod.
From a developer perspective, is today everything is infrastructure as code, right? So dealing with traditional storage solutions is very difficult to integrate. So a solution that integrates perfectly with Kubernetes allows for tools, infrastructure as code tools such as HashiCorp, Terraform, and others to deploy in a nice and easy and a secure way your storage.
Sure. The thing that I liked most about this was it gets you multi-cloud, it gets you consistency across clouds, on-prem and out to the edge. And there's not a ton of solutions that can say that at the moment. So if you're looking, especially if you're an enterprise and you're like, man, I need to get my arms around this. I need a consistent tool I can use for object store across all this stuff. ARTESCA seems like it's a pretty good option.
Yeah. I think there's something about the scaling here that Kubernetes brings to the table. It's not clear how this is play out in the object storage space, but if you can scale the performance, scale the capacity, all that scaling capabilities, I think that makes sense to the operations team and the development team.
ARTESCA is built on a number of open source tools, and that should make it developer friendly as well, right?
Yeah, I think that they've got the S3 APIs. They also have put on the other side of this the monitoring standards, such as offering up a Prometheus based monitoring way to watch the thing. So I think they really bought in on interoperability inside your infrastructure, and that speaks strongly to the platform being open.
There's an ecosystem already there in Kubernetes, so it's nice to see them embracing that. We'll need to wait and see how that actually develops to integrate with all of the cloud native tooling. The competitive response from other players in the same market is going to be interesting, because this isn't the only option for a Kubernetes-based object store. There are other things that people could choose. Some of those, I would argue, are actually more developer focused than enterprise. So it'll be fun to see which of these two approaches wins.
ARTESCA isn't just about storing data and retrieving data, though. It's about data management as well. And that was one of the things that they showed us in the demonstration.
For me, I spend a lot of my time having data-centric conversations with enterprise. and for me, it's absolutely crucial as you develop modern data platforms that you're providing insight and information on where your data is, how it's being utilized. Now, and I really like within the GUI the ability to have a consistent view of that across multiple data repositories, whether they're cloud, on-prem, on the edge. So that kind of stuff for me is really powerful. I thought that looked really impressive.
That again, getting back to the open source stuff, they're fully supportive of the cross-region replication services that Amazon developed for S3. So it's interesting that happens. And the other thing is that, ARTESCA can have multiple instances running within a same, it's not a cluster, but in the same namespace, I guess. And each of those instances can be doing these data management things by themselves. So.
At launch, Scality is only going to be selling ARTESCA through HPE, and HPE is offering it with an assortment of hardware in order to support this in deployment. What's your reaction to this go-to-market and launch approach?
I think it's going to add adoption. It's going to accelerate the marketplace for this solution. I mean, the HPE also talked about it's going to be part of GreenLake. It's going to be available consumable on demand. It's got a lot of capabilities. When HPE brings itself into this picture, it's a whole different product.
One of the things they focused on early in the presentation was that object store is no longer a second tier of storage. It can be your primary storage, and the enabler for that is SSDs, all flash, and then NVMe, obviously. And what they're doing with HPE is building a tightly bundled solution that takes advantage of those hardware factors to make object storage a first-class citizen. So the fact that they're working closely with a hardware partner to do that kind of makes a lot of sense. And then if you can consume it through GreenLake, so you can pay for it on an as-needed and as-wanted basis, well, that just makes sense from a financial perspective as well.
HPE is bringing their whole portfolio to this, including their sales army. I know that's not necessarily a hardware question, but it's going to help with adoption when you've got the entire HPE sales army pushing this for 6 months as well, as part of their exclusivity arrangement. So it has the potential to really help sort of, I would say, boost things early on or give them out of the gate faster.
If you're a Dell customer or a Intel customer or whatever, and you look at it from that perspective, you see a great opportunity for getting object storage there where you want to have it. And then you can only do it with HPE for the next 6 months. So it's kind of a weird thing as well for me if I look at it from that side.
One of the things from HPE's perspective was the fact that they haven't just launched this on 1 or 2 systems. They've got a wide range of systems available at launch. So I think there's about 6 systems. And I think they also mentioned that they were supporting both Intel and AMD CPUs in the initial launch as well, not bringing that AMD at a later date like we may have seen with other releases.
I think this is a pretty genius move. I'm not much into hardware anymore, but I think HPE got a good deal saying we can provide you with a beautiful looking UI, beautiful object store, great APIs, the whole experience. And what did they do other than say, let's just partner with Scality to get a great product because they've got a cool thing they built.
Scality chose to launch this in a partnership with Actual Tech and Tech Field Day today. I'm wondering what you think of today's launch activities.
Whenever you have one of these launches, it's great to be able to talk to the people who are in charge. And not just talking to a local sales team who are under direction. So you can find out a bit more about the reason behind the decisions that they've made and get a bit more of a flavor for where things are going to go based on how they respond to those questions.
I think this was one of the best launches in a COVID environment where we still have to do these things virtual.
From my perspective, I think because it was multifaceted, there was different types of content delivered in different ways. It's kept my attention throughout. So that's meant whether I just need the overall positioning, whether I want to know what the technology is, whether I want to know what the consumer's perspective is, whether I want to know what the Tech Field Day perspective is. There's those different facets of learning about it has meant that I feel that I've got a lot better awareness, and I'm not feeling like I now need to go and spend half a day researching a product. I've got a good understanding of what it is.
Is being able to take what they were, releasing, what they were announcing, and be able to break it down into those chunks, breaking it down into the different conversations to kind of get a full picture of what it really means.
And I think what it allowed me to do was to learn an awful lot, things that I probably would never have learned and probably never got around to asking if I'd just seen this as a vendor product launch. It got the chance to not only ask questions of the vendor, both HPE and Scality, but also of the other Tech Field Day delegates who brought a lot of experience, a lot of insight that in areas of the technology industry that I don't have.
And one of the things I think it brought to both Scality and HPE was a much broader audience than they would have had, but it also added obviously some logistical challenges because we bring a different kind of audience than Tech Field Day does, a very different kind of audience. But I think both audiences today got a flavor of something different. And I think that's pretty powerful in helping people sort of get a much broader understanding of what Scality was trying to do. It started with, it was almost a funnel-based approach. The very broad, here's what we're doing thing from Jerome and Paul and Carol and Chris from HPE. And I think that one of the things our audience doesn't usually get, because it's not the kind of event our clients generally want to do with us, is that deep dive that Tech Field Day does so well. And so I think everybody who stuck around, and there were a lot of people that stuck around, got something much more valuable than the individual parts. This was a case where the sum was much greater than the sum of its parts.
This event combined the breadth of coverage that Actual Tech brings with the depth of coverage that the Tech Field Day delegates bring in a way that I think was exciting and fresh and really did make the most of the opportunities that we're presented with here in the COVID pandemic times. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for watching this video. And we look forward to continuing the discussion with Scality, with HPE, with Actual Tech, and with Tech Field Day.